Hello guys, Trekyards is back again.
Hello.
Also back for this installment is our good friend Mr. Doug Drexler, who is joining us from sunny California. I'm Captain Foley, and as always, I'm joined by Samuel Cockings.
Hi guys.
Today's show will go where we have never dared to go before.
Oh.
Are you ready, gentlemen, as we activate the device?
Ready?
Ready?
Okay.
So I think we arrived safe. How do you guys feel?
Well, I've got a sudden compulsion to kill you, Stuart, and hate Trekyards myself, but I don't know all the faster stuff, so I'm going to say, everyone put your faces down, let's just make a nice episode in the mirror universe. How do you feel, Doug?
Angry.
What ship are we doing this week, Doug?
The NX mirror version.
Oh, so the ISS, the Terran Empire.
You know we are!
Now, we do want to specifically point out that we're actually covering Long Live the Empire.
Long Live the Empire.
I got to keep doing it, haven't you? This is specifically the mirror universe version, which is a bit different.
The ship's length is 225 meters, width of 135, and a height of 33.3 meters. The Constitution class is 289 meters, so just a little smaller than the Connie. The ship consists of 7 decks to the Connie's 21 and has a cruising speed of warp 4.5 and a max sustainable speed of warp 5 to the Connie's max warp of 8. 82 crew members as opposed to the NX class from Prime Universe, complement of 83. I guess at the Mirror Universe, they decided to fire or kill off Scruffy the janitor.
So,
You have to go.
So obviously, with all this stuff that happened in the Mirror Universe, especially that we saw at the intro, them taking on the Vulcans, how much more advanced did you see this mirror version of the NX being? I mean, the Vulcans had at least warp 7 by 2151. How much further did you imagine the Mirror Universe Empire being, sort of at the point we see them in Enterprise?
Frankly, I think that because they are so violent and vicious that as far as high technology, they're probably not as far along as our guys are. But when it comes to genocide, and killing and maiming and bleeding and eating, feeling veins in your teeth, they're way, way more advanced.
So you're thinking they might have not necessarily focused on the environmental and spacefaring technologies, but maybe stolen the Vulcan weapons and re-upgraded that side to make their empire. But
I think that would be their number one thing. Yeah. Blood, kill, maim, genocide. Long live the Empire.
ISS, of course, stands for Imperial Starship. As in the Prime Universe, this ship was also a flagship of the Terran fleet. And like in our timeline, in which there are only 2 operational NX ships out there, in the Mirror Universe there were at least 9, because in that episode we saw the NX-09 Avenger.
My question is, what is the main reason that Zephram Cochrane shot the Vulcans in the beginning of the episode? I've heard it rumored that he did so out of fears that the Vulcans would enslave Earth, so he just took matters into his own hands.
It's funny. I love the whole thing. I thought it was really great, and I love the new title sequence that they did. Wonderful. I did the little sword and a turning bronze-looking globe for the title sequence, but they did that fantastic title sequence. To me, it was like the attitude was kind of like a 1950s kind of attitude where you shoot first and you ask questions later. And the Vulcans, they deserve to be shot. I think I would have shot them myself if I had been there.
Wow,
is this the Mirror U talking, or is this the regular?
Yes, of course. We're in the Mirror U. Aren't we backwards?
We are. We're in the universe.
Kill them all.
Slight changes to the ship's interior were seen, as well as the outer hull decoration. The illumination was lowered, giving the whole ship a darker feel, and the normally blue wall lights were red for this mirror version. The most obvious change, just as in the TOS episode Mirror Mirror, was that the Terran Empire emblem, Long Live the Empire, on all the turbolift doors was very prevalent.
So, Doug, how much thought did you put into the exterior changes?
Yeah, that was one of the things I had to do, was design I called it a bikini.
The bikini for the ship.
Bikini, awesome. Yeah, it's a bikini.
Evil.
And they're kind of pincers-like. They're like pincer-like.
Yeah.
It's almost like the pincers on a fire ant.
That I can see.
The only changes to the ship that I know of were the markings. They wanted it was requested by the producers to make some kind of markings that would distinguish the ship from the ship that we've come to know and love. I made the markings look kind of aggressive, like I said, like the pincers on an ant or something like that, an insect pincers, that crush and, rend flesh. It was a pretty simple thing to do. I think I probably did a number of different designs that got sent over, and they picked what they wanted.
I know you don't really see it in Mirror Mirror, but you think the TOS era ships probably had the same markings, because I've seen a lot of fans that have made that. Have some,
Well, I mean, we never saw the top of the saucer in the Mirror Mirror episode, so
Yeah.
you're pretty much free to, decide that for yourself. I would say, yeah, I could. Why not?
Well, in,
I mean,
in Star Trek Online, the mirror universe do play a part in the game, and every single one has a yellow portion on the top because it's now the iconic mirror style.
Yeah, I think that's great, and it makes sense. I mean, look, the other markings on the ship are similar, traditionally, and I think we could probably safely assume that the Mirror Constitution class has that on top.
Why
I'm sure
yellow,
with that.
though? I mean, you changed the internal lights were changed from blue to red, and there's other sort of red vibes. Why yellow?
Well, it stands out better. I mean, especially in environments like space, red tends to look black. And I remember, I worked on a movie called Manhunter. It was one of the first movies that had Dr. Lecter in it. And there's a scene in it where Lecter says to Will, "Have you ever seen blood in the moonlight, Will? Looks quite black, So red is not a highly visible color. You might think it is, but it isn't. And that's why some fire departments don't use red on their fire engines. They'll use bright yellow or like a lime green because they're much more visible. And since the ship usually flies by the camera so quickly, for it to really stand out, I think if it was red, you might not have even noticed it, honestly, especially against such a dark ship as the NX was.
It was very distinctive. I definitely think it's now become an iconic piece of the Enterprise lore, that
Yeah,
style.
it punches out, and it's not that far from the bronziness on the, the logo of the world and the sword and stuff like that. I'm sure I tried it with a bunch of different colors, and that yellow just punched out better.
So if you could put the hat on of a mirror universe NX designer, would that be the same mindset? Do you think they would have? You're an evil emperor person. Would you also for punch, or do you think there was a reason?
Yeah, I want to make sure that they see it.
Yeah.
I want you to
I'm
know.
with the Empire. Sorry.
I want to make sure that you can see it right away. Besides, red's the Klingons thing.
True.
We don't want to be them. Yeah, I think it's all about visibility.
Mike Sussman confirms the ship to be more advanced than the prime NX-01 due to the more aggressive Terran Empire, having conquered various and other weaker races and acquiring their more advanced technology. For example, the ship had Vulcan-designed tractor beams, more advanced weapons, computers, and a voice interface technology, as well as Suliban cloaking device, which was installed during the episode, of course. It is worth noting that when they were being attacked, they say hull plating is down, meaning that they still have hull plating, even though both the Andorians and Vulcans have actual shielding, well before this point. And both are conquered, which would imply that the race's technology would be integrated into the Empire.
Well, I mean, perhaps it's a more militaristic race, so maybe they thought, let's have shields and hull plating. Why limit yourself to one? I mean, it's twice the defensive capabilities. And maybe in the episode, because the Suliban cloaking device taking a lot of the energy, they couldn't activate full shields, they can only use hull plating. Was it ever discussed to give the NX fully fledged shields, similar to the scene later on?
It really was never discussed. I mean, basically, we would get a beat sheet for the script that would have the basic outline of the story. And then we would get the first draft. And if it didn't go into the shields and the writers didn't have questions about what they might have, then we never got into it, because basically, as usual, our backs are against the wall and we have to just desperately work hard, to get done what they need for that particular story. If they had come to us for information on that tech, we probably would have sat down and talked about it, and then Mike would have written up tech notes that would have gone back to the writers, but it never came up.
So another bit of additional tech that was in this universe exclusively was the agonizer booths. Cozy old agonizer booths. They were designed by Malcolm Reed in this timeline and Dr. Phlox to cause excruciating pain to every nerve in the person's body. Ouch. That could be maintained indefinitely. Wow. By shifting to different nerve clusters.
What they didn't cover in the show was that they had agonizer underwear. That the underwear would also would reduce 3 sizes, creating excruciating pain. And it was actually more effective than the handheld agonizers.
Long live the Empire. Another thing worth mentioning is that in this episode, when they are installing the Suliban cloak, they need radiation meters while in engineering. And Commander Tucker says, "I've absorbed enough delta rays to ensure my grandchildren glow in the dark." They say that for every year next to one of these things, you lose a decade off your life expectancy.
I would say that in that universe, life is cheap. Maybe they don't worry about it as much. And that's part of you prove your toughness by doing that. I think you prove your stupidity, but
So was it a conscious point to put this dialogue in the script to give some extra behind the scenes, or was it just a way to explain Commander Tucker's face and give us a bit of subtext for the glorious Empire, and obviously long live the Empire?
Well, I mean, these are really Mike Sussman questions. You ought to get Mike Sussman on here for that. I'm just guessing, and it's off the top of my head, but it just makes them seem more brutal and cruel, and that life is cheap.
One interesting thing I noted when I was actually watching the episode again is that in the scenes in engineering, the warp engine hum is actually distinctly faster in the mirror universe than it is in the normal one, to obviously hint at better technology and more advanced. I mean, this is subtle, but I think it definitely gives a sense of extra.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you exactly what their reasoning was for doing it. For me, to have changed the sound like that, just like having more red flashy blinkies going on, it just ratchets the intensity up of everything.
In this episode's opening, we see the ISS Enterprise that had engaged a Klingon bird of prey, Regilian scout ship, and a Xindi fleet. And we also see another ship bombarding the surface of an unknown planet, showing the brutality of the Empire. The new introduction video gave us the idea that despite the differences and advances in technology, many events were shared in both universes, although I'm sure the Xindi arc would have been much shorter with a fleet of Terran battleships flying into the expanse and decimating any Xindi they found. Long live the Empire.
The writers, you probably would take every historic moment that we've seen and twist it around into a nasty, version of itself. I mean, there's a lot of potential there too. So, yeah, I'd say that sounds like a fun thing to do, actually. Go through and take that timeline and twist it around nasty. I'd like to know what the Mirror Universe art department was like. What would an evil Herman Zimmerman be like? What would the evil Mike Okuda would be like? The evil Denise Okuda. Now there, you're talking some interesting stuff. I think that's interesting. Evil Captain Foley.
Anyway, so like we saw in the episode, in the year 2155, which is when the Mirror Universe episodes took place, the Enterprise departed from Gorlan Station to rendezvous with the assault fleet, to which she'd been assigned. However, en route, First Officer Archer staged a mutiny, taking command of the Enterprise and putting Forrester in the brig.
He then took the Enterprise to the Vintax system, where the Tholians had a ship from a parallel future universe. The Tholians had detonated a tricobalt warhead within the gravity well of a dead star and had opened up an interplexing rift through which the ship had traveled. The ship was, of course, the Constitution-class USS Defiant, from the Prime Universe and the TOS episode Tholian Web. The Tholians were storing the ship inside an asteroid dock in orbit of a gas giant.
And we know that you designed, or at least submitted, this dry dock, Doug. So tell us about how you designed the station, how you linked it to Tholian design.
We knew so little about the Tholians. We'd seen what ended up being their head or their helmet in Enterprise, but aside from that, all we had seen was the ship. the little ships. There was really nothing to go on at all. When I did the design for the dock, I thought, I guess the thing that came to the forefront was to keep it from looking like a Terran-style dry dock, where you have those angular walls and stuff. So I made it absolutely round, like a wormhole in an apple almost. Plus, I have to admit, I remember seeing some paintings that I really liked that Ralph McQuarrie did for the first Star Trek movie that they didn't use, of a starbase in an asteroid. So it was a little bit influenced by that.
So, after becoming trapped within the Tholian web, the Enterprise was attacked by Tholian ships and exploded in the resultant antimatter containment breach. So, there goes the Enterprise. But the ship managed to launch escape pods. Most of them got destroyed, but a few survived. And it must be noted, this is the very first time we saw the NX escape pods on screen and where they were located. In the Prime Universe, we knew they were yellow. In the Mirror Universe, they were red.
I know. I mean, I designed them, and I figured out where they went. They went along around the top of the hull. They all came out there, and I even had a plan.
It's right in there, right?
That's right. They came out of there, and they came out sequentially. And it wasn't like previous shows where we had seen where we've got doors on flat surfaces where the things come out. I really like those escape pods. They were like a kind of a tough little seed, the design.
Throughout the two-parter, we never see the Mirror Universe NX class ever actually fire its phasers. Each time they fire, it's what looks like plasma bolts. Now, in the pilot Broken Bow of Enterprise, we see the Enterprise with the pre-phase cannon era
Yeah, right.
fire a series of look like red plasma bolts as well, like cannon shells almost.
Well, I mean, we don't really know exactly what they are. And I'm sure that the reason they decided to do that was because it looked different from what we were used to seeing. I'm sure that was the only reason, to make it different.
So the things we see in this episode, they
Long
are...
live the Empire. Sorry, I had to interrupt you there.
Well, you're evil. It's fine. So, like I said, I have a theory. So these weapons we see in the episode are yellow, and they're much faster firing than in Broken Bow, but they look the same. When they attack the Tholian ship, they take it out in 1 or 2 shots, which shows obviously more powerful, since the Tholians in the original NX timeline could easily outmatch the NX original. So, my theory is these actually are pulse phases, like we see on the Defiant, which are stronger, if not slower, weapons, because they managed to use a higher yield. So I think the Terran Empire, in this episode, it's clear to see that they went for the more pulse phases rather than constant particle beam weapons, because of the punch you get with pulse phases. I mean, in DS9, we see a Defiant shoot a few spreads and blow up a Dominion ship in 1 shot. So clearly, pulse phases have this punch that phases just don't. So maybe. And also what's interesting is that we see pulse phases being fired from the top of the saucer, which is different because the phase cannons are things that come directly out of NX-01, and they're always at the bottom, yet these pulse phases are at the top.
Well, that's not true. Okay. And when we get into talking about the NX, I'll tell an interesting story about pulse cannon and phase cannon emplacements on the Enterprise. They're all over the ship. If we really had to stop and put thought into it and design a warship version of the NX for the mirror universe, I would have had all the weapons obvious and permanently mounted on the hull, like they were later on later ships, and which basically we do to the NX. The NX changes a little bit as we get into the Romulan War. The first version of the NX refit doesn't have the cannons, the weapons mounted on the hull. They still egress from the hatches. But as we get into the war, we have more phaser banks that are permanently mounted and obviously there and ready to go all the time. And that's what I would have done with the Mirror Enterprise. I would have had weapons right there, right out there.
Personally, I love this ship. I really like the new hull graphics, and it makes the ships that we all know and love a lot more interesting. Plus the fact that they had better weapons and more advanced tech just adds to the appeal for me. The one thing I really liked about this episode, though, was the way they made the Defiant look so much more advanced than the NX. A lot of people, myself included, had been for years saying that the NX looked a lot more advanced on the inside compared to the Constitution class from the original series. But this episode really highlighted the fact that the Connies are much more advanced, and given the proper lighting and filming techniques of modern television, the original bridge could indeed look amazing on screen. As for the NX herself, I really love the addition of the cloaking device. And as a Mirror Universe fan, I just love seeing all the subtle changes from our universe to their universe. But I sometimes wonder if everything would be so much more the same, given that the fact that people are so more violent. You would think that people would have been murdered in the past, so certain people wouldn't have been born. But yeah, we always see the same people kind of in the same spot. And just kind of, it's one of those Mirror Universe things that kind of throws me off.
They managed to survive.
I know, but so many
They're all
people
survivors.
Many people are getting murdered just off the cuff. What are the chances?
Everyone who wasn't evil enough got killed. All our people are the top evil people. Okay. Just like in the good universe, they're the top of the human race there too. So it makes sense that they'd make it survive. How do you like that?
Yeah.
The fact that the technology advanced almost exactly the same as well, like aesthetic wise.
Yeah.
I don't know if I buy that, but it's a Mirror Universe thing. What can I say?
Yeah, well, I agree with you.
So, Into Mirror Darkly is one of my top fave, I think, Star Trek stories of all time. I put it randomly on just for fun. I love the look and the feel they were able to create with the Defiant. I've just been talking about how it feels advanced, and I love just seeing the NX with the Defiant on screen at the same time. I'm always a sucker for multi-era stuff. Who'd have thought? I think the changes to the NX were great. The hull markings of the Terran Empire were they become iconic now, and it's really cool. I love the interior changes, subtle, but also not subtle. Who'd have thought just making them red and then lowering the lights would make that much effect? But boy, does it feel like an evil ship, and everyone, just doing that, long live the Empire, to every single corner. Ridiculous.
Well, some of the, making Scott's hair black
Mm.
instead of the kind of soft brown that he
Mhm.
usually had,
Mm.
you know, really went a long way to making him a different guy.
Yeah, he
And
looked-
Mayweather's peak that he
Yeah.
had, and
Yeah, it was great.
he
Love
looked a
that
lot
haircut.
more evil.
Everyone did you know, the thing was that everyone who worked on those shows realized the significance of the previous shows and always worked to include it.
And that's it for the Mirror Universe. ISS Enterprise, long live the Empire, guys.
Long live the Empire.
And close us out.
That was
Evil
the mirror
Split.
salute.
Yes, so there you have it. That's the Mirror Universe version of our show. Hope you enjoyed it. We would like to thank Doug Drexler, of course, for joining us again. And as mentioned before, he will be back to talk us through on the NX-01 at some point.
The NX-01, that's going to be a really interesting show because a lot of stuff was figured out for that in advance. You know, it's not like one of these ships of the week where you have your back against the wall and you're just trying to get a design approved.
Yeah.
You know, this, we really worked out a lot of stuff on that. So it'll be a lot of fun.
And that is
So
a tease and a half.
Yes, so stay tuned for that, guys.
Looking forward to that.
Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and also visit the website at trekyards.com for past episodes in case you missed anything. We've already talked about a few of them in this. So catch you guys later. It's Captain Foley.
Samuel Calkins.
Doug Drexler.
Signing off until next time.
Long live the
Long
Empire.
live the Empire.
Bye, guys.